How often are orchestra students assessed in a traditional orchestra class? To an orchestra teacher, that's a very silly question, almost an offensive question, because students are constantly being assessed. You're constantly assessing the student's performance. You're not just doing run-throughs of the music. You're stopping and you're saying, hey, that wasn't quite right. We're struggling with this bowing over here. Hey, your articulations are a little muddy over here. Students are constantly assessing themselves, self-assessment. How am I doing? They're assessing each other. I do a lot of peer-to-peer coaching, and they assess each other that way. But hey, even if they're not doing peer-to-peer coaching, I want my students listening. I want them listening across the ensemble. I want them assessing each other. Hey, how do I compare to this sound? Hey, how do I compare to that sound? You know, I pull the class all the time. Hey, on a scale of 1 to 5, how comfortable do you feel with X, Y, or Z technique that we're working on, or these measures or whatever, and just take the temperature of the room. So, you know, that's something that I really wish that our administrators would understand, is that orchestra is constantly about assessment. Something that's very unique to what we do is that we can offer feedback almost instantly. Student does something and we can tell them right away, hey, this was good, or this needs help in this area, all right? And that's super important for learning. Why is it important for learning? Well, let's think about the difference between two different fields of medicine, okay? We have surgery and we have cancer treatment. Now, the technological innovations in surgery have just skyrocketed, whereas cancer treatment has kind of not gone up quite as fast. Why is that? Well, a surgeon, you know, they do the surgery and immediately they know if it went right or if they went wrong. They can see their result right away. Whereas an oncologist, you know, they have to wait maybe a year to see if that particular chemotherapy is working or that treatment is working. You know, their controlled trials take forever, and, you know, that's kind of what's holding them back, is they don't get that immediate feedback. Whereas in orchestra, you know, feedback is happening constantly. So when you're looking at doing your formative assessments, keep that in mind. How quickly can you assess the students and get that feedback to them? Part of my formative assessment are graded assessments. Of course, we assess our students all day long, every day, you know, 24 hours a day. When they're sleeping, we're still assessing them. When they're awake, we're assessing them, you know. No arguments from me there. But for graded assessments, we still have to ask the question, how quickly can we get these assessments graded and get the grade to them and give them some feedback so they can improve? Do you allow your students to resubmit? Let's say they do a playing test or they do something like that and they totally bomb it. Do you let them submit it again for a better score? Do you just hold their feet to the fire on that, or you don't care as long as they learn it eventually and hopefully before the performance, right? So you let them keep submitting and trying to improve, and how often, you know, that all that's going to matter when it comes to your grading, because everything they turn in again, you're going to have to grade again, right? Do you accept late work? You know, that's something else you're going to have to think about too, because, you know, you get to the end of the grading period and all of a sudden a student that's done nothing is turning in like every assessment, every graded assessment, you know, right at the end. Do you have to does your grading workload like quintuple as a result? You know, so that's all these things you have to think about within the parameters of how often do you take graded assessments and what are your parameters for those. So I can just tell you what I do here and why I do it. And I've done this fairly consistently, and other teachers do things differently, and that's fine. Maybe we'll have them on here sometime and they can talk about it. But I like to do one graded assessment every week, and I like it to be due on a Monday. And the reason why I like it due on a Monday is because I like to have the students take home their instruments over the weekend and work on their assessment. And I usually assign it on the previous Monday. So if they're going out of town over the weekend, you know, they can do it over the week. But if they're in town, they can work on it over the weekend. It's their choice. They get a week to do it. And every Monday, it's due every week. So there's some consistency. They know it's going to be due every Monday. Okay, but what that means is that on Monday nights, you know, I got to get that assessment graded with the feedback and everything and get it back to them. Okay, so obviously the way I'm talking about this, I'm doing this electronically. In the next episode, I'm going to talk about all sorts of different ways to give formative assessments and graded formative assessments, but the way I'm doing it right now is through electronic submission. So they turn it in. So yeah, I got to get this graded and get it back to them. So on Monday, there's going to be no bowling league for me. I'm going to be stuck in front of my computer, doing my grades, so that I can get that feedback to them as quickly as possible, and then I give them a week to resubmit. If they don't like the grade they got, I let them try to resubmit for a higher grade, and that's good. I want them to practice. I want them to learn that spot. I don't want them to just give up on that particular assessment. I want them to improve, and I want to hold them to a high standard. So where do my assessments come from? So during my orchestra class, I have a tuning period. I work on a lot of rote technique, and then we work on some concert music typically. And most of the time our rote technique, which can be found in our demonstration exercises, by the way, if you check out season 1, and then at the end of season 3, I'm gonna put some more bonus content out there, some more demonstration videos, but I tailor those to the music that we're playing and try to work on our weaknesses. So we're building the skills to be able to improve our concert music. So my assessments don't cover the rote technique. The assessment evaluates how well a student is progressing with that rote material as it applies to the concert music. And the idea is, well, if you can apply this technique to this piece of music, you should be able to apply it to every piece of music. And so that's the process that I use. So every week, a student will get maybe something like 8 measures, and probably not the 8 measures that they already know, probably the 8 measures that they really need to work on the most. And I put that in front of them and say, hey, learn these, submit a recording, and it's due on Monday. And the next week, I pick another 8 measures, and we basically get through our whole concert music that way with the series of 8 measures per piece that are the most challenging, so that they sound really good, because there's some individual attention going on and some encouragement for practice and some accountability through our grading scale so that the students get that stuff learned. The worst case scenario for graded assessments is if the students just don't do it, right? They're not turning in their assessments. Well, they're not learning anything from this assessment process. They're just getting zeros, and that's a bad thing. So I'm doing my grades Monday night most of the time. Every once in a while that slip a little bit, but typically Monday night, doing my grades, and I see, oh goodness, Johnny didn't do his assessment again. He didn't do his playing test. So what are we going to do about this? Well, there's a cool feature in the software that I use where if I enter a Z instead of a 0, it automatically emails the parent out. If you don't have that feature, well, you probably will have little Johnny's parents' emails like right up. You just type the first letter of their parent's name, and their email shows up automatically in your email software. So you can just send them an email. Hey, don't know how to tell you this, but little Johnny, well, he didn't do his playing test again. And that way the parents are informed, and they can maybe encourage little Johnny to get it done. Now, if you're emailing parents week after week and they're still not turning in their stuff, well, maybe there's some miscommunication going on. Maybe the parents aren't getting the emails. And after about 3 of those, it's probably time for a phone call. So you pick up the phone and say, hey, I just wanted to let you know that little Johnny, he hasn't done anything for the past 3 weeks. And I'm just concerned, does he have the ability to record this stuff? Does he need to do it at school? How can we help here? And most of the time, if you're working with the parents in the best interest of the student, and you're just saying, like, instead of just going like guns blazing, like, little Johnny he'll never amount to anything and whatever, like, you don't want to go that direction. You want to be more supportive and say, what can I do? What can I do to help Johnny get these in? Because, it looks like he's struggling with this. And then the parents will work with you on that. And between the 2 of you or the 3 of you or 4 of you or how many people are in this situation, you can probably find something to get it done. And then now little Johnny's participating just like everybody else. Worst case scenario is, you talk to the parents and you talk to the administrators and you talk to little Johnny and nothing's happening still. Well, what do you do after that? You've kind of done your best, and usually there's a problem with buy-in from somebody, from the parents or from little Johnny or somebody that haven't bought into your program. And, you've got an opportunity to try to get them to buy in and try to pitch your program to them. And if you still can't get them, the likelihood of them staying in the program is pretty low. So they'll probably wash out. I don't like when that happens. I try to have them buy in, try to have them do what they're supposed to. And, if you build from the values of your program and you get the parents and students to buy into those values and see how orchestra is beneficial to the students, then that gives you a better shot at not going to the worst case scenario. In the next episode, we're going to talk about assessment format, and there's a lot of ways to assess the students: informally and formally, graded, not graded. All we do all day, every day is assessment, and we need to make sure that we're aware every time we're assessing a student, whether we realize it or not. It might just be through a dirty look, but that's an assessment too, right? It's showing the student their progress in your class. So we have to be very careful with that as well. But there's a lot of different ways: verbally, non-verbally, visually, test-based, that we can do. There's a lot of different tools in the toolbox that we can choose from, and make sure that we communicate that to our administrators to make it look like we're doing something in our class, to where, we're giving the taxpayers their money worth, because orchestra is a very expensive class to run. We got all these instruments and we got these tuxedos and stuff that we got to pay for. So, hey, orchestra is something and we're working really hard here. And it's not just this cute little thing where they get on stage and they go, oh, and, they take a picture of little Johnny with little Johnny's cello. It's like, oh, little Johnny is looking quite so much not like a demon today. And, that's great. But, we also have to be able to show the administration and show the parents the serious side of orchestra, that we're working on goal setting and we're progressing and that there is some education happening in the classroom. So we'll see you in the next video.